This is the Sideline Slice, presented by Valentino's Pizza, the official pizza of the Huskers. Here's your host, Jessica Coody, and Husker Radio Network analyst, Jeremiah Sirles.
Welcome into a post-spring game edition of the Sideline Slice, presented by Valentino's Pizza with the big dog, Jeremiah Sirles. I'm Jessica Coody, and just like that, spring football chapter is closed.
Yeah, it always comes to this big pivotal head, and the spring game's such a fun celebration for the fans, celebration for the players, and it was a beautiful day. It was super nice out compared to last year. Last year was freezing.
Yeah, it was miserable.
Like, I remember up in the booth, I was like, oh, have fun down there and have fun down there on the field, Jessica. But the field was great. It looked like an electric atmosphere. I'm sure there were some recruits in there that had a great time. So yeah, it's finally over. Chapter closed, and now the next time we play football, it's for real. I
thought it was really cool. I mean, I talked to a few of the former players that came back. Seemed like there were more this time around, maybe because the weather was nicer, but Cam Taylor-Britt was back, Amir Abdullah, which we've heard about the relationship between Amir and Coach Rule from Carolina, and Trey Palmer was back, and it was it's so neat. And then, speaking with Coach Rule about, they want these recruits to fill that coming in, and the importance of bridging that gap and everybody feeling welcome. It's really neat. I mean, you guys talk about it a lot, but I don't know if we always get to see it, but the spring game was an example of just that.
Yeah, the spring game is always a giant reunion, right? Because when you show up to a regular season game, you want to be kind of locked in. It's usually a big game, want to see what's going on. But the spring game, it's a glorified scrimmage, and so it's like, who my buddies are here? Like, who can I hang out with? Who haven't I seen in a while? Who do I want to catch up with? And, it's just so nice to be at a university that welcomes us back like that. I think for most of Husker Nation, you just kind of think that's the norm, right? Like, oh, yeah, well, every university just lets their players come back. It's not like that everywhere. Talking to guys in the league that I played with, they would say, like, oh, you go back to your school, like, they barely even talk to me anymore. They barely even let me in the building, right? And it's just different. It's just different here, right? It's different here. It's a family atmosphere. It's a community. It's everyone that wore the N before us and everyone's going to wear it after us. You're part of the brotherhood. And so, I love that Coach Rule's embraced that. I think it's really smart of him, and also he understands it. And, it's just going to continue to draw more and more support from everyone that's been here before him.
Well, let's dive into maybe some of the big takeaways from the spring game. And, the two injuries were not good to Bly Hill and then Demetrius Bell, but I think we saw very quickly. Coach Rule said going into it very well could be an air raid, just basically a battle of throwing it up in the air and letting those guys battle it out. And we saw that, and I feel like I've been really impressed with the wide receivers throughout spring, and we got a little bit of a taste of that. Lots of different receivers getting in on the action, and Dylan Raiola really spread the ball around, especially.
Yeah, we talked about this receiver room, some transfers in, some guys from last year, but the emergence of some young players is what we're going to need. And Jalen Lloyd being one of those guys, he ripped off the long touchdown there. And, we saw the flashes of just pure speed out of him last year in a lot of the games and some reverses, but you can see the development of him in a player. Right, you're starting to see his route running ability, his ability to create after the catch, like not just, hey, you're really fast, go, but just the continuing progression for him, and that's a great job by the coaches there, Evan, being able to just continue to keep grinding with these guys, right? And with Raiola, and you can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but it's weird to me when I watch him. He looks and acts like Patrick Mahomes.
Oh my gosh,
and
that's what everybody kept saying.
I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. Right? I'm not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, but like the mannerisms, and I swear if he starts doing this nonsense with like the little finger thing, I'm gonna lose it. But like he literally just walks around in the confidence and everything. It reminds me of Patrick Mahomes. It was just so bizarre to watch. He's even got the like little footh hair coming out the back of the helmet. Like it was just bizarre to watch him, but he spread the ball around like Patrick Mahomes. I'll tell you that. I think you were telling me it was 13 of 15, 13 different receivers or something like that caught the football for him, and just throwing it all over the yard, and the arm talent obviously well on display, and that's kind of what everyone wanted to come and see out of 15.
So you were not the only person that made that observation. I do think he's training with some of Mahomes' folks too, but his first pass was not a completion, but boy, he let it fly, and you could just hear the crowd react. And then, a couple of his passes, like you and I said when we went out to practice, it looks like something special coming off of his hands.
Yeah, I mean, he may have the purest arm talent of any quarterback that's been here in the last 2 decades. Just pure arm talent. I'm not saying like he's the best quarterback in the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
Time will tell for that. But just overall raw arm talent, it's there. It's on display, the arm angles, the different ways to make throws. If he can continue to develop his IQ of the football, of IQ as a passer, understanding protections, understanding run fits, and just continue to getting smarter and smarter, his arm will take him all the way to the NFL if he wants to.
And you pointed this out. This is one of the first things you noticed when you were out of practice, but I think a lot of people got a glimpse of it on Saturday too. But the improvements of Heinrich Harburg also, he made a couple of really, really nice throws as well.
Yeah, I think we always kind of forget that he was a freshman last year, right? Like he was young. Like we looked at him and we were like, oh, he's the vet coming into the room now. It's like, well, he's not a senior. He's not a fifth-year guy. Right, he's still a young developmental guy as well. And so, yeah, it's great to see that all those guys are continuing to get strides because it means they haven't hit their ceiling. And we talked about his throwing motion is very different than last year, and that was very apparent on Saturday as well, where you can just see it's not this big wind-up sidearm fastball thing anymore. Like, it's more of a true throwing motion and rhythm. I thought all the quarterbacks did a good job of trying to get the ball out in rhythm. Right, and that's a big thing when you talk to quarterbacks, when they feel like they're clicking and they're going. It's a hard thing to do in spring ball because you've got a billion different receivers and different tackles and centers and everything's all over the place. But, I felt like all the quarterbacks took their time and got in rhythm well. Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
Woo! The allergy season, baby.
I do have to correct you, though. Heinrich was a sophomore last year, but he did not play in a game. It's actually his third season. He's a redshirt and then a redshirt freshman, but his first action ever on the football field was last season.
He's a redshirt freshman, redshirt freshman. His first year being a contributor is kind of that, right?
Yes. Yes. I just wanted to make sure that people didn't say, he's not a freshman, type of deal.
He was a redshirt freshman, which means he's a freshman because until you play, no one cares.
Okay. So, let's talk about Danny Kaelin too, because again, this is a battle and this is something that will carry into the fall. But, again, just as a true freshman, you sometimes forget. Like, those are two true freshmen out there. Yeah. But Danny Kaelin's another one of those guys that doesn't seem to carry himself that way all the time.
Yeah, and, I think Danny and Dill are going to push each other like crazy, right? I mean, Danny doesn't care that he's a 5-star recruit, right? He's like, I'm here to play. I'm here to compete just like you are, right? And I may not have the God-given talent that's given you. That doesn't mean that I can't outwork talent, right? And so that's a great competition. I think those two are going to be really good friends. I think they're going to push each other well. And, if I'm Danny Kaelin, I'm sitting there going, hey, if Dylan's everything's cracked up to be, then in 3 years, he's going to the NFL, and I'm going to be the guy for at least 2 years here, right? And that's not a bad thing to be anymore. You don't have to be a 4-year starting quarterback anymore to go to the NFL. It's proven. Guys are doing it time and time again. But I think Danny has shown some really raw ability to show that he could potentially be the guy down the road. Right, he's still got some growing up to do. I mean, he's big. Like, he's a big kid. He's got a big trunk on him, and I think that's part of the allure of like, hey, let's continue to develop him and really get him going on the physical side of it, so that when it is his time to go, he's gonna be ready to go out there and take the thing and run. And also it's not a bad problem to have 3 quarterbacks that you feel good about, because very rarely does a quarterback make it the entire season anymore through a game here or a game there that you need a spot starter. You want to have good quality depth that when those guys run in there, you're not feeling like there's a drop-off.
Yeah, and Coach Rule alluded to that he thinks he's going to take the whole room. And, I mean, it took three guys. We saw 3 different quarterbacks last year, so you definitely need more than one, so you got to get all those guys ready to go. I did want to, circle back to the wide receivers and, that speed that we've heard this coaching staff talk a lot about, the importance of it. I think you're starting to really see that and, on display, especially with Jalen Lloyd. I mean, what kind of separator is that when in Tony White's defense, he was not able to put out his full arsenal of being able to make the quarterback's life uncomfortable, but still just with the speed of one-on-one matching up with a guy like Jalen Lloyd, some of those speedy receivers, what kind of separator can that be for an offense?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways you can look at it. In the pass game, obviously you always want to have the threat of stretching the defense and taking the top off, right? I mean, and why do you think the Chiefs just drafted Xavier Worthy out of Texas, who ran a 4.21? Because they want someone who Patrick Mahomes can play 500 with and throw it as far as he can. Right? When you have that type of threat, it makes corners back off. It makes safeties stay at depths. It makes you bracket coverage guys, and it creates opportunities. You know, you look at it from the run game. If you have a speedy receiver, that safety that likes to put his nose in the box and 1st and 10, 2nd and 10 because he thinks it might be a run, he has to make a decision. Do I stay back and make sure this dude doesn't run by me for the explosive play, or do I come up there and run support and go? And if he stays back, then you're looking at more like 6, 7, 8-yard runs instead of maybe 3 or 4-yard runs, right? And that's all just with the threat of speed, the threat of getting behind the defense. And, you know, when you can have multiple of those guys, or, I mean, 1 or 2 of those guys, you can make a defensive life hell, because defensive coordinators, if there's one thing they hate, it's when receivers get behind the last line of defense. Oh, it drives them bananas, right? When they're like, how did you lose that guy? How did he get by you, right? And sometimes like, well, he's just really freaking fast, coach. Like, I don't know. But if you have multiple of those dudes, it really puts the defense on its heels. And if you get into attack mentality, then you know you've got them right where you want them.
One of the things I've been meaning to chat with you about, we just have not had the time in our conversations, but the addition of the being able to communicate in the helmets. And you did that at the NFL level. You had that opportunity to kind of, I guess, get a feel for how that works. And when I talked to the freshman quarterbacks at the beginning of spring, they said it was really weird. They have been using it here, that technology. They did it last fall. They just didn't use it in games. Obviously, now it's the defense that's working out how they want to use it. But how does that change the dynamics of the communication between, you know, the offensive coordinator, quarterback's coach, all of that, to the quarterback and right there at the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, so the operation should be smoother, right? And I'd have to make sure, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know in the NFL, the headset turns off with 15 seconds left on the shot clock, right? So the 40-second play clock, at 15 seconds it shuts off. I'm not sure if it's going to be the similar, different, or kind of around there for college, but it's not a lot of time. I mean, it may seem like a lot of time, but it's really not, right? For a coach to get a full play call in, maybe give a couple updates to the quarterback, and then, right, shut it off. But I have seen coaches, and have talked to quarterbacks that say, like, man, if a coach is in my ear the whole 30 seconds during that, like, it drives me nuts, right? If a coach is trying to be like, all right, hey, gun, trips right, 2-jet, Y shallow, Z cross, X post. Hey, watch for the 2 safety check here. Hey, watch if they do this. Let's get to this. And then your quarterback's like, and then the cut's off, and then you're like, oh shoot, I got 15 seconds. Hey, hurry up, get to the line, right? Like I've seen that happen with rookie quarterbacks that got into the league that just aren't used to it. So it's going to be a learning curve for every quarterback in college football. It's going to be good for the game, right? I hope that we get to eliminate some of the posters on the sideline of a giant rubber duck and all that other nonsense, right?
Taylor Swift.
I hope that stuff starts to fade out and it becomes more real football. But, you know, it also allows the coaches to put like 2 play calls in, right? To have 2 play calls and say, hey, get to this. Or if they play hurry up, right? You can play hurry up. You get to the line. It allows a coach to see everything and get you to the right check as long as you do it quick enough. So I love it. I think it's going to be a great thing, but it's just going to be a matter of an operations perspective from how much, who has it. Is it Satterfield? Who's calling it in, and making sure that those coaches don't have too much going on those young quarterbacks' plates and putting too much on their minds.
Okay, because that's fascinating that you bring that, because sometimes you're watching like play calls come in and it is going up until the last second and people are going nuts and crazy and it is bonkers, and I could not imagine if that is in my ear, you know, the entire time. So I'm sure too that it's also going to be a process of figuring out what quarterbacks like to hear, what they don't like to hear, what stresses them out, all that, but also maintaining your composure, because it can be chaotic when you see different, when you see the defense lining up differently. Oh, this play call might not work. Let's change it real quick. I mean, it's ever flowing, and so it's got to be. You also probably have to be mindful of, okay, let me not panic in the air here.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And you have to be calm as the coach, right? Because if you're panicked, he's going to panic. Because not only does he have you in your ear as a coach, right, but the tight end's running up like, hey, did you see I was open on the seam? Or the O-line coach is like, or the O-lineman are like, hey, what's the count again? Or hey, what down is it? Right, like you're getting asked a bunch of questions in real life, but then you also have this dude in your ear just like drips left, right, blah, 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 blah. Like it can be a lot, and it's why those dudes make $50 million in the NFL that can handle it, right? But I'm glad that it's getting into college football. It's good for it, but yeah, there's such a learning curve, and every quarterback's going to be different. Right, what Dylan wants to hear, what Danny wants to hear, you know, what those 2 guys are going to want to hear may be completely different than what Harburg wants to hear. right? Harburg might be like, listen, just give me the play call and let me be, right? Versus Dylan might be like, hey, if we hurry up and you see something, talk to me in my ear. But I also have been in a huddle or in a hurry-up situation where a quarterback's trying to get checked to something, all of a ssudden, like, hey, look out for this, the safety's coming down, get you, and it just cuts off, right? Like, oh, no more, okay, I guess we're winging it, here we go. Right, like that plays a factor into all of it, too. So it's such a different dynamic that's going to be input into the college game, and I'm really excited to see what it looks like.
What is the kind of communication that the defense is hearing?
Yeah, defense is just the play call, right? It's pretty simple for defense. Defense is dumb, right? They're just like, hey, over cover 2, ready, break, right? And then everything goes from there, and then everything's just hand checks from there on out once you go. But, a lot of it's just getting the play call in. Mike linebacker or safety usually wears the green dot in the NFL, I'd assume. With the way that Tony White's defense is run, I'd assume he'll give it to a linebacker just to be able to communicate to the guys up front, also communicate to guys in the back end, right? They're kind of that middle coach there, but a lot of that's just getting the play call in, or hey, alerting them to, hey, this 2nd and 10, 2nd and 10 tendencies tell us they like to run play action here, right? Remind the guys, over double Tom, ready, go, right? Those type of things are what they go through, just quick reminders and getting the play call in for the defense.
Yeah, Tony White, I chatted with him at the beginning of spring, and he said they're still trying to figure out how they want to utilize it because they do run so many different guys out there. And you can only have one guy designated to be that guy. And so I know that they have had different guys where John Bullock, who was my Cornhusker conversation, has been one of those guys. Isaac Gifford certainly has. But it's like, which one do you give that communication to? Because they are constantly rotating guys out. So it's more of a work in progress for the defense, I think, and how they'll utilize it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Usually in the NFL, the Mike linebacker never comes off the field. He's there on every single snap, and so he's always out there. I think a guy like Singleton, right? Like, he's a guy that I think should never come off the field for the defense, so maybe he's the guy that wears the green dot, right? But you don't want to have a corner wear it because they're so far away, right? If they're trying to get things done or put things in there, you don't want to have them be running back and forth in what they need to do. So it has to be a safety or a linebacker.
Okay, so we don't really have much to, I guess, really dive into at the defense because, like we said, I think it's hard to really, completely dissect what we saw on Saturday because of the fact that, again, Tony White was not. He was kind of handcuffed a little bit on what he could do, and not to mention Jamari Butler, Nash, Ty. None of those guys played, so it was more so, I feel like, a showcase for the offense, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's not the defense. Anyone that watched Husker football last year knows that is not the swarm all over you attacking downhill defense that we saw in the fall. And it's not like Tony White all of a sudden changed his philosophy over the last 5 months. No, that's just as much of, hey, we don't need these guys that have played a lot of football to play another game, get injured. We need them for the fall. Let's get the young guys out there. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it moving. Let's not show anything new we've been working on. And let's give the Husker fans a show for what they wanted to come here and see, and that's watching these quarterbacks throw it all over the yard.
Greg did want me to ask you about the offensive line, and which, again, I think is hard to really determine because a lot of the Ben Scott didn't play, who's arguably the best player on offense a year ago. Ben Hart didn't play. Turner's still coming back from his injury, so I don't think you got a full, feel for what the offensive line is going to look like. But I do think they got some push, some of those younger guys, and I think they're coming along. Some of those young players that we've talked about how important it is this spring.
Yeah, and Teddy made it through a full spring. That's a huge step in the right direction for him. Right, he's a guy that needs to just feel more confident in his body and to make it through the whole spring, and looking to be our left tackle. And you got Evan going in there too, who's trying to get better, and then Gunner. All these dudes got better this spring, right? And when you want your guys to get better, that's what you kind of at the end we talked about in our last episode. Like, did they accomplish the goals that they set themselves out for? And watching some of these young guys run off the football, get into their double teams, attach and run, it just shows me the progression that they're on. And that's a testament to Coach Raiola and how he cares for these dudes, how he goes for these dudes, And again, there's probably some pressures that were in there, some sacks that showed up. But again, those aren't our starters, right? It's hard to gauge a spring game, right? It's really hard to be like, well, who won? Right? Like, was it the offense? Was it the defense? Was it somewhere in the middle? Or, was it gray, white, red, purple, green? Like, who won the day? And it's just like, the Huskers won, man. Like, everyone got better, and we only had 2 injuries. That's a winning day in my book.
And thought they took better care of the football.
Oh my gosh, it could have been worse than last year.
You're right.
I mean, last year I remember I was calling the game on BTN. I was like, "Oh, Rule's going to blow a gasket." I was like, "He's just going to lose it." I mean, it was just fumble central everywhere. And yeah, a couple fumbles, couple interceptions, but overall, I thought that the operation was good this game. Right, guys in and out of the huddle, up and off the field. No balls on the ground, those type of things. Limited balls on the ground. All those things were good this year, which is a step of showing just, hey, it's a full year in Rule system. There's more accountability. There's more discipline. There's more everyone holding each other accountable. That's all really good signs pointing to the future.
Like what we saw to the running backs, too.
Yeah, I mean, Emmett's going to be a beast. I'm so excited for him. I think he's going to be an absolute stud.
Yeah, and they're not even at full strength either. So,
yeah, no.
Again, there's just only so much you can really tackle at this point, but we'll...
it was such a nibble. It was just a nibble.
Yeah, it really
football.
was.
Like, it really, like, you came to the game and you were like, I want the full pie.
But
and
you
can't.
can't. You can't have the full pie.
You don't get the full pie. You get the full pie in September. Like, you get a taste, right? You get a little nibble of what this can be. And it's just not enough. It's just not enough. I need more. I need more of the pie.
Well, yep. So, we'll get the full pie come, 3 months from now?
Oh, so close. So close.
Okay, so speaking of going to the next level and the NFL draft was over the weekend. No Huskers hear their names called, but definitely was intriguing with the Broncos getting both Quentin Newsome and Omar Brown. That might be. I don't hate that. It might be a decent fit for them.
Yeah, I'm excited for both those guys. And a chance and an opportunity is all you can ask for in the NFL. Right? Nothing is given to you unless you're a first, second, third round pick. You are not guaranteed anything. And, a lot of guys have made great careers being undrafted free agents. Those two guys have the right mental makeup. And, you hope that with the talent that Rule's bringing in here from a recruiting standpoint, that we start to hear more Huskers names called in the late April in the draft. But, for those two guys, couldn't be more excited for either one of them.
And then Phelan Sanford goes to the Raiders. He's a guy that could stick around for some special teams, right? I mean, he's fast. He's not afraid to hit. I mean, he's a guy that could stick around and hang around because of the role he plays on special teams.
And that's the only way he's going to make it, because love you, Phelan. Think you're the man, but you ain't playing safety in this league, stud. Right? Like, you're going to be making it by being a special team, four-core team guy and being a heartbeat and an energy guy. And, those teams are always looking for those kind of guys. The special teams coach needs to be his best friend, and if they become best friends, he'll give himself a chance.
All right, and Nuri Nueli goes to the Saints. What does he need to do to maybe stick around there?
He's going to have to beat up on my D lineman that got drafted down there. So a little crime there of my friends, but no, super excited for Nuri. A guy that battled through the suspension, came back, had some injuries, up and down at times, but just tried to stayed the course. A thing that'll help him too is the NFL has the why am I losing it? The international player rule, right? So since he is from Germany, he could actually be on the practice squad and not count against the roster. So
wow.
I think he has a chance to stick around and develop. Those guys that are the international players can really help themselves stay in the league because of that rule for a couple years and really develop in an NFL system and then get their chance.
Coach Rule has talked about this. They're not hiding this. They know that eventually they're going to have to start, building that pipeline to the NFL and producing that NFL talent. How important is that going to be for this program moving forward to start producing that kind of caliber talent that you can get to that next level and stick around at that next level?
Yeah, I mean, look at Michigan. They had 18 guys invited to the combine. I think they had 12 or 13 of those guys drafted. NFL talent wins games. It's pretty simple. And, as a recruit in high school, you want to go somewhere that has a track record of saying, hey, not only are we going to win games in college and have a great time doing it, but when everything's all said and done, you're going to be set up to go make a run at the NFL and make some big boy money, right? Like, that's every recruit's pitch initially, right? If you strip down what a high school recruit is looking for, they want to go somewhere where they're going to win a bunch of football games and have a great time doing it and then set themselves up to go to the NFL. And Rule knows that because he's been in both. He understands what it takes, and so he understands that building that credibility, building that pipeline, it takes time, but it's completely necessary if you want to have sustained success at one place.
Gotta, though, Phil, if you're a potential recruit, these are guys that just came from the NFL. They understand what it looks like to be able to compete at the NFL. They have those relationships still. I mean, that's got to bode well, again, for building that pipeline to the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. They know what it takes to play in the NFL. They know what it looks like. A lot of those coaches have been in and out of the NFL. So it's not as much about knowing how to do it. It's just about taking the time to do it, right? They're only in year 2 of their regime, right? It's hard to come in and say, hey, you're a senior this year, and you're going to go to the NFL because I know what we're doing, right? It's going to be more in years 3, 4, 5 when you see guys that are all rule guys, all this staff's guys, how they've developed over time is really what's going to make the difference there.
Okay, so this time in a year from now, are we talking potentially Nash getting drafted? For sure, Ty Robinson's got to be in that conversation. There's got to be guys that we're hearing their names called in a year from now, right?
Yeah, I think Ty, Nash, Isaiah Nair, Ben Scott. I think there's probably 4 or 5 guys that are going to put themselves in discussion to have this type of year. If they can have a good year this year, they'll definitely put themselves in consideration for the NFL draft next year.
What does Nash need to do to be able to move up those conversations?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for him is just being more developed and more polished as a pass rusher, right? It's obvious he's a powerful dude. He can eat up double teams, but the NFL is a pass league, right? They want guys that can get to the quarterback. They're not looking for the guy that can just eat there and stand still. Yeah, you got to eat the double teams. You got to be able to push the pocket, collapse the pocket. So just continue to work on his pass rush moves, his get off, having a rush plan. I think he needs to have a better rush plan from play to play. But, all those things are very coachable things, very fixable things. I think if he can start putting those pieces together, then he's absolutely going to put himself in contention to be a draft pick.
Okay, let's wrap this thing up. What is the next chapter look like now for this group? How are they building off what they did in spring moving forward?
Corey Campbell, your time to shine, baby. Bigger, faster, stronger. That's what the summer's about. Bigger, faster, stronger, putting yourself in the best physical shape that you can be heading into August. Getting yourself geared up, ready to go. You're feeling good. Your body's tight. You're ready to rock because it's a long haul once August hits. But, this is kind of a little breath here in May to regroup yourself, refocus yourself, go see your family, get a couple weeks off. But then once you step back on this campus late May, early June, it's go time until the following December.
All right, you hit the golf course yet after the shoulder surgery?
Getting close. I hit the short course a little bit last week. I don't think I'm ready for the full swings yet, but it won't be long. It won't be long. I'm getting a little stir crazy. It's too nice. It's too nice to not be out there swinging the sticks.
All right, well, maybe by the next time we have a pod, you'll be out there. But you're going to be helping us out on Sports Nightly coming up here pretty soon.
Yes, this summer. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Sideline Slice presented by Valentino's Pizza. We got a couple more fun episodes that we're planning that we will drop here coming up in the next couple of months. But I think that'll at least wrap up spring football, our spring football episodes here for now. But stay tuned for much more. And again, for Jeremiah Sirles, I'm Jessica Coody. This is the Sideline Slice presented by Valentino's Pizza, the official pizza of the Huskers.
Go Big Red.